So thousands of years ago, there was a king, a very popular, very famous, and very renowned king in terms of his people and his subject. And he gained all the knowledge you can think of. And still he wasn't satisfied. So one day, he was sitting in his court and listening to his people. And suddenly, as he was listening to his people and, he got bored and he dozed off. And in his dream, he saw that there is a terrible famine in his kingdom and he lost everything. He is left with nothing, not even a single penny. All his palace, all his gold, whatever he owned, everything is gone. And he was on the streets begging. And there was hardly anything left in the kingdom because of the famine. So he was going door to door, asking for some bread, something to eat. He could feel a terrible hunger in his tummy. And he was really desperate for something, some food, something, whatever it could be. And finally he managed to get a little piece of bread. And he was so happy, terribly happy. But there was a conundrum there, right? He was stuck in a thought, because in those days there was a dharma, there was a principle that whatever you have to share with the people around you. So he said, what to do? So he thought, probably have to move to a place which is a little quieter, right? No one is there. So he went further ahead and he found a nice quiet place underneath a tree. And he just sat there. He said his prayers. And he was about to eat the bread that suddenly an eagle came and took the bread and went away. And in that process he said, ah! And suddenly he woke up out of his sleep. And he saw that everyone in the court is looking at him. And he could feel the terrible hunger in his tummy still. So he thought, what is real? Is this real or that real? What is the reality? Because I could still feel that hunger in my tummy. So he called everyone, all the, his chiefs and everyone to come and get people from his kingdom to answer that. And he couldn't get the answer. And finally someone said, put him into touch with a sage called Ashtavakra. So it's a sage with 8 deformities, right? So his leg was deformed, the arm was deformed, and so many 8 deformities in his body. And when he entered the court, everyone said, wow, how come this person? He doesn't look even worthy of entering the court. How come he is here? And those thousands of years ago, the king, he got up from his throne, he gave his place to that sage, and he invited him. He said, "Oh sage, can you please answer my query?" So there is a very famous, I'm not going to go into detail, there is a very famous book, it's called Ashtavakra Gita. It's around 20 chapters. And this whole discussion about what reality is in that. But what is reality for you? That is my question today. What is real? What is reality is something not changing, right? In Vedas, that's how they put something which has no starting, no end. That is the truth, right? That is the truth, isn't it? If something is changing, right? You tell me something and it's changed the next moment, would that be reality? Perhaps. Yeah. So there is a beautiful hymn in Vedas. It's called Nasidye Sukta. Right? We'll come to that. So Nasidye Sukta, it looks into how the creation came into being. How the whole universe was created. So many years ago, thousands of years ago, they could perceive, they could see, right? And they said, and it is a height of skepticism there, right? They said, perhaps the creation came into being like this, perhaps it came into being like that, perhaps it came into being like this. We don't know. Perhaps someone who created this creation would know. Or perhaps the God himself doesn't know because the God himself was created. Or perhaps the one above him who did this would know. Or perhaps we never know. So that is a height of skepticism they kept in there, right? In terms of how the creation came into being. Yeah. So you see how the time started, how we measure the time in this world, or how we measure the time on earth. Day, night, right? We measure by how the earth is revolving around the sun, right? So when it does the one complete circle around the sun, what is that? 1 year, right? So if you are on some other planet and it has its own sun, the year will be completely different to you, right? Right? How do we measure our day and night? Is rotation, right? Is the rotation of earth, one complete rotation, right? That is 1 day. Yeah. There are other motion of earth as well, right? There is a wobbling of axis, right? Which takes probably, I think, around 26,000 years, right? So that is another rotation of, or the movement of earth axis. There is another one which is the tilt of axis, right? Which was, I believe it's around 41,000. So there are so many different motions, so many different ways of measuring time. And in Vedas, they try to club it together in the period. It's called yugas. You must have heard about yugas, right? You know it, right? Which yuga are we in? Kali Yuga. And who is scared of Kali Yuga? Right? So there are 4 yugas, period of time. What are they? Satyug, Treta Yuga, Dwapar Yuga, and Kali Yuga or Kali Yuga. Right? So it's like this. In Satyug, if you want to drink water, before even your desire will come, that will be fulfilled. There will be water present for you here, right? That is used to call as Satyuga, right? Philosophically, everyone was happy, everyone was free, kind of yuga, period. The second yuga, Treta Yuga, it's like this. You desire water, And as soon as the desire comes, you will get the water. It is there for you. It will be made available to you. The third one, the Dwapar Yuga, that is when you desire water, you have to struggle, you have to work for it, but eventually you will get the water. Right? And Kali Yuga, which we are supposed to be, in this Yuga, you desire water, you struggle for it, and you struggle for it, and in the end, you won't even get it. Our consciousness, we all believe in consciousness here? Yeah, a bit, or maybe as a concept. So we are all part of supreme consciousness, right? Sort of, this is what Vedas they propose as a concept, and as well as that's where so many scriptures were written, that we are all part of Brahman, one consciousness. That is what we are created with. So it's like this. As a body, we want freedom, but we are dependent on for our food, for our so many requirements and needs, we are dependent on others, right? Is that correct? Right? And then when the consciousness, the Atman, the self come into this body, right, which is free, it also wants to be free from the body. But it can't become free, but that's when the realization comes that we are not independent, we are interdependent. Yeah, it's like this, right? A fish is in water, right? Swimming in water. Probably, perhaps it doesn't know it is in water because there is no end to it. It can't see the end of water. It is always in water, right? Perhaps that's why we can't see that we are all part of one consciousness. We are all related. But if we are all related, right? And in the modern science, we say that we are all vibration, right? We are all vibration. Do we believe it? Yes? So when I touch you, why don't I feel it as a vibration? Why do I feel it like a matter? That's a good question, right? So what we believe in, what is being said at that level, spiritual level, and what we perceive, what we see, what we experience is two different things. Why is it so? Why is it so? Have you thought about that? So assume if you touch a glass of water, you feel it, right? You feel it like a solid. Yeah? If your hand is numb, would you still feel it? If you are sleeping and you are holding a glass of water, would you feel it? Yes? Maybe? So the glass of water is glass of water. And you are you, but three different experiences in three different conditions. Why is it so? So what is the reality here? What is the truth? Yes? So these are our senses. You know? How many senses we have? Yeah. So perception, right? We can perceive things. But beyond our perception, there are other things as well. Like we have to get the microscope to see things which we can't see with our naked eyes, don't we? Yes? Yeah? What else? How much do we hear? Right? Even dogs and cats, they can hear beyond what we hear. Yeah? Is that correct? So we all know what we see, what we hear, what we touch, what we eat, or whatever we experience, it's a little subset of the much wider being, right? Do we agree? Yes? So what we are saying here is that our senses, they are limiting us to a degree, which is what's stopping us to be free. Maybe. If you don't agree, that's absolutely fine as well. We don't have to agree. Because this is the one thing which is said, right? This is when you come together, and that's how it started, all of this dialogue, is about preparation. And the one very important part of that preparation is the sense of inquiry, the sense of wow, right? So sense of inquiry is something sometimes you question it, you look for it, but sometimes however far you look for it, you have no answer. You know there is a physical reality there. Data doesn't prove it, but that is a reality. So what do you see? You wonder, you see something, a beautiful mountain, what you say? You wonder, wow. How to? Wow. Right? This is what life is. Right? Now, I'll briefly touch upon something which is very dear to me. Right? So, I studied architecture and I love the subject. And it's the the contemporary architecture into it. And at the same time, I also started my journey looking into the Vedic architecture. It's called Vastu. It's called Vast U, right? The big U. It's a very beautiful name. If you flip it, it becomes Utsav, which means celebration. Yeah. So there are, I would say, 5 very beautiful subjects, right? If I, as a part of Yoga Shastra, Darshan Shastra. Darshan means perception, right? Nowadays, when we go to school, what we do, right? We have to study. We have to break everything down when we go to university, right? This is electrical engineering, this is mechanical engineering, this is civil engineering, this is computer engineering, right? That's how we study subject. In those days, in old days, how do they used to study? Just sit down, be with nature, or sit down and meditate. That's how the wisdom came to them. So these Darshan Shastra, these 5 Darshan Shastras, they are sister sciences. And you know, right? We all know about Ayurveda? Yes? Yeah? So Ayurveda is about ourself, our health, our body, right? The other one is, we know about astrology, Jyotishi, the science of life. We know about Jyotishi? So Vedic astrology, it's looking into the cosmos, it's looking into the planets, it's looking into the time aspect of it. So how time governs us, how time sort of has an impact on us. So time means the rotation, the position of different planets, different stars, how they impact us. There is another one which goes into the music, the Sangeet Shastra. Right? So the Sangeet, the music, the vibration, how exactly it impacts us. We all know about a Yoga Shastra, yoga, right? That is also part of that. Yoga, the breath work, which we did. And the 5th one is the Vastu. So it's a very beautiful science, right? Because they treat Vastu as the bridge between the cosmos or the time or whatever is happening in the universe or in the planet, as well as us, right? The body, right? So do we have just body, or do we have anything else as well? So they divided it into three parts: the gross body, the subtle body, the causal body. Right? So three part of it. The easy way to understand is, so when I call you, let me call my wife, dear wife, right? Fatima. So am I just calling as a body or as a physical being, or am I calling something more than that? So what else I'm calling? I'm calling body, I'm calling breath, I'm calling mind, I'm calling intellect, I'm calling memory, I'm calling ego, I'm calling self. So you go from gross to subtle. So do you see the complete cycle? You start from universe, the starting of universe, you come to the planets, you come to the stars, you come to the Vastu, which is the bridge, the house you live in, you come to the body, right? In body, then you go from towards the subtle, which takes you to the self. Self is the Atman, the consciousness, which is the part of the same consciousness as the universe. Do you see the full cycle? Can you perceive it? And all the holistic sciences we talk about, this is the full cycle where you can put the placeholders. You say Vastu, you put it where your house is. We talk about Ayurveda, where to put it. Ayurveda is about the body. We talk about the meditation, where to put the meditation. You put it where the self is, where the consciousness is. Right? So all the holistic sciences we know, we talk about, you can find a placeholder where you can put these. Right? But in the end, I was talking about the consciousness, right? I'm conscious of time, actually. So I'm talking about the consciousness. There are four modulation of consciousness, right? The four flavor of consciousness, right? So we talked about four yugas. So similarly, we have four flavors. The one flavor is when we are sleeping state, when you're sleeping. Another is when we are in dreaming state. The third one is when you are in activity state, right? And the fourth one is when you are in meditative state, right? So I'll come back to the yuga, right? The yuga to yoga, right? So yuga is around 432,000 years long. And we just enter into the Kali Yuga, right? So we have around 5,000 years we have done to one calculation. So we have so many years to go before we can see any light at the end of this tunnel, right? That's what worries us. So you shouldn't be worried about that, because we also, as I said, we have this modulation, the yoga, the fourth state of consciousness. So within a day itself, you go through all the four yugas. We sleep, which is equivalent to your Kali Yuga, right? We wake up, right? Which is equivalent to Treta Yuga. We do certain activities, we meditate, we play, or when our consciousness is at that level, like even in music, you are sitting and you are enjoying it 100%. That is the state of meditation in action as well. So this is when you go into Sat Yuga, right? So within a day itself, you go through those cycle of those yugas as well. So need not to be worried, right? We have what we want right now at this time to be completely free. What we need to do is just let go. And how to let go is meditation.